Welcome back to This is a Commander channel, where this is a Commander channel, and today I'm going to talk about Commander Tough Rules and Cool Interactions, episode 62. Today's episode is going to be another subscriber requested one. Travis Hall asked this question a few episodes back, and it was something involving a win-con sort of a combo that I have seen players try in the past, so I decided it was worth making this episode on based on that. So thanks, Travis, for the question, and here it is. I have a question for you if you have the time and are willing to answer. Thank you in advance for any information on it. What happens if player A uses a Painter's Servant and Grindstone combo, and player B has a Nexus of Fate as well as a Gaia's Blessing in deck? Thank you again for your time and effort in any and all information. So, here's the answer that I gave him as a comment reply, but I've cleaned it up a bit and added a little bit more clarity as to the result. I also, before we begin, we need to read these cards to figure out what they are, so let's see what they do. Painter's Servant is an artifact creature that says, as Painter's Servant enters the battlefield, choose a color. All cards that aren't on the battlefield, spells, and permanents are the chosen color, in addition to their other colors. And then Grindstone is an artifact with the activated ability for 3 and tap. Target player mills 2 cards. If 2 cards that share a color were milled this way, repeat this process. Nexus of Fate is an instant that says, take an extra turn after this one. And despite that being a very powerful effect, it is not the main part of this in regards to the question. It has a replacement effect on it that says, if Nexus of Fate would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal Nexus of Fate and shuffle it into its owner's library instead. And finally, Gaia's Blessing is a sorcery that has 2 effects that we do not care about in regards to this question, but the one that we do care about is the third one, and it says, when Gaia's Blessing is put into your graveyard from your library, shuffle your graveyard into your library. Interesting to note, if you see an older version of Gaia's Blessing, like its original printing in Weatherlight, it is worded differently and uses the word if rather than the word when. Most players in Magic know that when is one of the 3 words to show that something is a triggered ability, and a lot of players associate the word if with being a replacement effect. That's not the case 100% of the time, as the word instead is used for replacement effects, and it's typically accompanied by the word if. Just keep that in mind in case you experience this in a game that you're involved in, and that is why we always want to pull the most recent Oracle text for cards when we get into these sorts of rules question situations. Okay, now on to the answer that I provided to Travis, and again with some slight updates to it. First off, the difference between those 2 cards. The Nexus of Fate has a replacement effect, so it happens instantly. That's instantly with air quotes around it, and it never actually goes to the graveyard. Gaia's Blessing has a triggered ability, so the thing that puts it back into your library is slower, again with air quotes, than the Nexus's replacement effect. Grindstone is a one-time singular activated ability, so even though multiple things are happening over and over and over as it resolves, they are all part of one singular activated ability that is resolving. Players do not gain priority during a spell or ability that is resolving, and triggered abilities do not go onto the stack during a spell or ability resolving. So, the Gaia's Blessing would never be back into your library while the Grindstone repeats its process. The Blessing is still in the graveyard, and there's a triggered ability waiting to be placed onto the stack. This means that the Nexus would eventually be the only card left in their library, and the Grindstone does specifically require for those 2 cards to match colors. So the singular Nexus cannot match with another card that isn't there. So, with the cards that he mentioned in this specific scenario, the end result would eventually be a library that is just down to a singular Nexus. The Grindstone would fail to continue going and going and going, and it would finish resolving its ability with the Nexus in the library, and then the blessing is in the graveyard, and now a triggered ability that is being placed onto the stack to shuffle the graveyard back into the library. And all of that would resolve, assuming no other players have responses. To add to this, if you were to have another card in the library, like a Nexus, something that has that kind of a replacement effect, something like a Blightsteel Colossus and or a Darksteel Colossus, then the stone would now be an endless looping effect. Those two cards over and over and over would see each other. They would match colors because of the Painter's Servant, and the game would just keep looping and looping and looping, and it would end in a draw, which is kind of a bummer. Again, thanks to Travis for the question, and I appreciate all of the comments that everyone makes. It, of course, helps with the algorithms of YouTube so that people can more easily find these videos. Anyhow, that's all I've got for today's episode. As always, I hope that all of you have found this video to be entertaining at least, and I hope that a few of you have even learned something about the crazy rules in this great game of Magic. Have a good one. Ta-ta! And for those of you who stuck around for a little bit, I hope you guys all had a great Thanksgiving. I haven't uploaded kind of recently because I've been busy with family birthdays and Thanksgiving and just all sorts of crazy. I actually had Thanksgiving on 2.5 different days. So that was just a wild last few days. So yeah, I hope you guys all had an enjoyable time. Hopefully most of you got to spend some time with family members or at least friends. I also did a Friendsgiving. So shout out to the friends that I was with before Thanksgiving, where I spent the time with them for a Friendsgiving. So yeah, all right, I'm going to shut up or else I'm going to keep talking. Y'all have a good one. Ta-ta.